All right, hello and welcome. I had just ordered a few weeks ago a recurBOY, which is a video sampler. I'm now the happy recipient of this box from the underscore shop. So the recurBOY is a video sampler that runs off of a Raspberry Pi. It's created by Tim Caldwell, and you can get it through the underscore shop. And so with this being a sampler, or kind of a video sampler and effects unit that's run on the Raspberry Pi, I expect to just kind of be a PCB that accommodates the board and then the various our Raspberry Pi and then the various interface chips. And so that's what we have here. Looks like there's a surface mount component that is already soldered, which I absolutely welcome because those can be kind of finicky to get soldered. Beyond that, we have the screen. So this will be for interfacing, human to the unit, so you can actually see what's going on. Got some cool buttons. These are going to be, these are on the main drawing. Just kind of that's the red button cap, and the buttons are looking something like this. So we've got a handful of those. Keep them in the bag. Some wires. Got potentiometers. And looks like some maybe audio inputs or something like that, so that would be amazing. I haven't read through the features in a little bit. Looks like you got your composite output. A few little things in that bag there. Got the hard disk for the Raspberry Pi. We have a complete printed bill of materials with some of the materials taped to it, so that's wonderful. Keeps things very organized. I didn't count things specifically here, but this looks about right, and I will get a bit more into that when I get down to the build. It looks like I have also received with this package a Whitaker's peanut slab, which I'm pretty excited about. I am a fan of chocolate, and I appreciate them sending it to me. This is living in Nashville. We don't have this specific chocolate, so this is made in New Zealand, so a little bit of local flavor, which I totally appreciate. And finally, we have a instruction manual and build guide. So this is awesome that they printed this. I think that something similar in PDF is available online, but it's nice to have the printed version here and available, and that they provide this. Love the hand-drawn artwork on it. Really is kind of a throwback to like Electronic Projects for Musicians by Craig Anderton. Really makes it feel approachable, gives it a cool DIY vibe. And so that's, love the artwork. That's really fun. And then the, step by step, looks like it's in a really good logical order, so that, the biggest challenge is just going to be, hopefully, to just solder this correctly. So hopefully that won't be a major issue. Got a little postcard size promo printout from the underscore shop. Looks cool. Really like the design of that. So so that's pretty much this, what came in the box from the underscore shop. And then in addition, you do need to source your own Raspberry Pi for this project according to the website. So I got that from Adafruit, and then the breakaway pins to attach that to the board. So hopefully this is going to be everything that I need for this build. Very much looking forward to it. Looks like a lot of fun. And so hopefully we'll be getting into this soon, and that it'll be a successful, fun build. All right, thanks a lot. All right, I've now had a cup of coffee. I have thoroughly enjoyed the mini peanut slab with that. It was quite good. Now it's time to move on to the actual soldering. So we've got our bench set up. All the parts are laid out to try to make this as seamless as possible. And we've got the nice manual here from the underscore shop, and hopefully this is going to be a walk through. So we've got, this looks like we're starting off with 4 resistors and then 8 diodes. Main thing to note is that the diodes are, have polarity. Resistors do not. So we're going to just start in there and get these parts straight from I'm going to start with the resistors. So get these going, and then we will get the diodes out as well. so all parts are accounted for. I did the bill of materials check, so that makes me very happy. And so we're just going to dive right into this. So these resistors are all the same value, so it's just a matter of finding where on the board they go. Okay, so the resistors are in place now. This says good beginning. I'm going to now move on to the diodes. And again, so there's 8 diodes, kind of 16 solder points. Probably going to do about 4 at a time because that will be too many leads, maybe interfering with each other otherwise. And again, look for you got to look for the bar on the diodes, because if you don't do that, you're gonna have the polarity wrong and things will not be good. Let's see if we can get those to focus. Okay, cool. So that's your diode. Usually on the PCB, you will get an indication about the direction. So I'm not exactly seeing that here, so I'm going to try to read this. I think I figured out the diode situation. The K is for cathode, which starts with a C, and I guess there's a bit of a convention about using the square pad versus for this. So for the cathode. So the only thing I don't love about this is the K sort of looks like the schematic diagram for a cathode, so it made me a little nervous, but I checked the original hardware listing on the recurBOY site, and I could confirm that some of the parts were going that way. So launching off into the diodes now, and we're gonna get these parts stuffed. Okay, so those look pretty good. The cathode's going into the side labeled with K. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of them, and they're all oriented to how I think they should be oriented. So now we're going to move on to the pins that adapt to the Raspberry Pi. And so, okay, so my understanding of how this works is that the Raspberry Pi sits under the board. So they emphasize that these parts need to be placed from the bottom. So these are the sockets themselves, so not the actual pins. So I think, so we need okay, so the socket will go on the underside here, and then there's also this other 2-pin socket that goes on the underside. And so I guess here you pretty much end up with a situation, oh goodness, okay, so it's a 2-pin socket that is kind of, all right, we're gonna have to keep that straight. All right, yeah, so this is pretty, I've seen this done before. You clip these off of a larger piece, but sometimes they don't easily stay together. And looks like what they've done here. So that's no big deal. We can figure that out. So in any case, then you'll get, I think the way that it's going to go is you'll then get your Raspberry Pi, and then you'll have the pins on this side, and the Raspberry Pi will sit here between that, and then I guess also, oh, maybe not. Maybe it sits this way, perhaps. Yes, because you have these other jumper pins that are going to line up with it. Okay, cool. So I think the overall structure is going to be something like this. So you have access to these ports on the what will be the back side of the whole system. So that's pretty cool. That makes sense. The instruction manuals kind of, they describe this, but it's helpful to look at it to get a sense. And then this part needs to be on there really straight. And so something I like to do to help encourage that is just use some tape while unsoldering it to keep it down, because I don't know, it just like, it's really annoying to resolder these. And so you can get it right the first time. Tape can help keep it flush against the board. So now when I'm messing around and doing that, it'll stay pretty good. I'm gonna try to also just put a little prop underneath it to keep it straight. So those should be pretty flush. Yeah. Okay, so this is just going to be 40 solder joints. Hope none of them are cold. Wish me luck. It's kind of fun. You get to feel like you're a machine when you do this. But don't get too carried away, or else you'll have cold solder joints. Here we go. Okay, so we have now completed step 2 of the assembly. So we've got now these sockets, which are presumably going to allow us to place the Raspberry Pi pretty much right here and have nice access to the USB and other ports on this. So that is super cool. Okay, so now we are looking for some the IC and buttons. So there's an IC. Okay, cool. The IC that is the surface mount one that's on here is that's the one that we actually want to, or that takes the place of what could have been the dip circuit that would have gone below it. So that's very useful to know because, well, I thought I was missing something. So that brings this one to just be the 5-way switch, and which is switch 1 through 5 on the top of the board, and then J9, which is, oh sorry, we get each of our individual switches, or buttons, sorry, rather buttons, and then we get the 5-way button. So yeah, I'm just going to pop these on. Oh yeah. All right, it's looking pretty nice. So next step is to put the screen on. So the pins are already attached to this, which is cool. So I'm just going to put it here. This is another one of those parts you want to sit flush. If you can see, it kind of wants to like fall a little bit. So I'm gonna, this is a little too big for the tape, but I think because it's kind of big, I can just stash some foam here and kind of help it sit flush when I push down on it. But I may not. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and use the tape. So I'm gonna tape that side so that the foam kind of gets it sitting flush. The other side. I just feel like when you solder on these larger parts and then they're not straight, it feels just kind of like, it's kind of a bummer. Okay, I think that was successful. The screen looks straight, the screen looks on. I'm going to remove the tape, and that is now the end of step 4 of our assembly. So we have gone through, at this point, we've gone through resistors and diodes, and then we've placed various buttons and switches on, and now we've placed the screen. So this is really starting to look like a fun toy. Really can't wait to finish this one. So I'm gonna go see a movie though right now. So I will hopefully be back for this later this evening or maybe tomorrow morning, and just really looking forward to it. It's really coming together. Went to the movie. It was wonderful. American Fiction, highly recommended. It's funnier than I expected, and a good story. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We are going to finish up the recurBOY. We're getting pretty close, so we just got a few more parts to put on. So here we go. So we are now on step 5 of the manual, which is to solder on the jacks. So I believe that I should have various jacks available. So we got the RC, we've got, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so these are the RCA connector, and then the rest of the 1/4" jacks. So gonna just go ahead and pop these in. Okay, that all feels pretty good, pretty solid. So looks like for step 6, we're moving on to the potentiometers, which we have 4 of, and they are all 10K, so we're not having a risk of putting them into the wrong spot, which is good. So we're just going to pop these on and then do one more group, and that will fully populate our circuit board. It's definitely starting to take shape and look like a cool custom electronic. So let's try not to mess this up. Okay, that pretty much takes care of all the circuit components on this, except for the Raspberry Pi. So I think now at this stage I need to get some pins on the Raspberry Pi, and then get it to where I can plug it into the back, like we kind of showed how it would lay out earlier. So I need to get pins that are they're gonna slot in like that. And then I have the 2-pin socket that's going to go there. And so the way these work are the short ends of the pin go to the Pi, the Raspberry Pi, and then so that the long ends can insert into the socket. And so we're going to get that out. The Raspberry Pi out. Think about how this is going to actually sit in here. So it's going to actually go this way. So we're going to just go ahead and make this happen. So that's this group initially. So here again, I'm going to use the tape to try to keep these on there straight. Make sure it's not too long. So you don't want to melt tape onto your circuit. That would be a bad thing, or it just would look, I don't know, be a mess. So, but I still am a believer in a small amount of tape. Cut off that little excess there. snip. And that's holding that in there pretty good. I might have to do a little bit with the tape after, but yeah, so I'm gonna solder this on. Okay, here we go. Okay, that should pretty much do it. We've got all these pins on, and now I think it's time to put it all together and move on to flashing the SD card. So I guess we actually don't have to do that because we have the SD card provided from directly provided by Underscore. So that's super cool. All right, I think this thing's built. Okay, well, I think it's time to move on to the next steps. Okay, so we're putting this thing, got this full thing together. We are now gonna see, just put the buttons on, see if it boots up. This is kind of a moment of truth. Make sure, see if everything actually worked as intended. So we've powered it up. I see a screen. That is not oh, here we are. Beautiful. Well, how exciting is that? So I'm gonna go ahead and try to get these buttons on and give it a little, oh, pushing all kinds of buttons. Looks like I've gone to the shaders menu accidentally as I put the, maybe I'm gonna turn it off while I put these buttons on so I don't just get us into some deep menu. But I gotta say, this is pretty cool. I'm very excited about getting all this together. I mean, what a cool device. This is just like, this is the future. This is neat. Okay, so let's get it, let's go ahead and plug it in and get it powered up. Okay, cool. I think this basically looks like, it's got a, it looks like it worked. Pretty much happy with this. We've got the screen going. It is booted up. All of the parts are on, and I don't see anything obvious that's gone wrong. So I'm very happy and very excited to learn how to use this and get it hooked up to video. So that's going to be the next step, is actually get a video signal chain. Go ahead and clean up the desk a little bit and see what our new toy can do. So thanks for following along. Okay, recurBOY is assembled, and it is passing a signal, and this is a good sign because it means we mostly did things right. So I'm going to show you what's going on with this thing though, because it's not fully working, and we're gonna get through this. So just select a video. So I can see here that the videos are playing, which is awesome. And I can select different videos, which is also great. And it looks like if I go to the shader mode, I can get some pretty cool looking shader things going. Now, something I have noticed is it doesn't seem like any of the knobs, I'm twisting the knobs right now, and I'm not getting much or any modulation. So that is not the expected behavior, and so I'm not sure what's going on with that. And then I realized when I hit the effects, it completely blanks out any So then I just turned the effects on and it went away. So it's supposed to kind of add an effects loop into the chain. So something's not right, and this happens with DIY projects, and now I'm just going to walk through what I'm going to try to do to remedy this, because it basically looks awesome. I've got it projected on the wall here. I'm pretty much very stoked about how it looks. I am less stoked that it's not working. So usually at this stage, I will try to start with the obvious thing. And the most obvious thing, since this is a known working project, is that I didn't solder something, is that we have a cold solder joint. So I'm going to start searching around for that. It's I will say that most of my builds don't work the first time. So this is a pretty normal step. So I'm going to jump onto the solder bench and give this a go. I think step one, when you encounter something like this, is don't panic. It's pretty common. I mean, we just made, a few hundred solder joints. The thought that one of them's cold is likely, and now it's a matter of finding that. So basically the whole system works, or it seems to work, except for the knobs. And so what I suspect, and at least where my mind is on this at this moment, is that one of the potentiometers, so the potentiometers are knobs, one of those may not be, I'm going to suspect that those are a potential source of the cold solder joint. And then there is, or it could be from the socket to the Raspberry Pi, like the signal's not actually getting there. So I'm going to just, I don't know, I guess I'm going to touch up the potentiometers themselves first, in case one of those, I mean, I think I put them on last, maybe I was in a bit of a rush. So I'm going to start there. And I'm kind of going to try to start from the easiest to access and then work to the more difficult ones. I'm going to be pretty bummed if it's actually the pins under this here, because that's under the screen, and that will require us to desolder the screen, which will be a pretty annoying task. So I'm going to start with these here with the pots, and then I'll probably reflow. The other source could be, it was kind of tough setting when I set down the Raspberry Pi, looking at those, they don't look bad, but it's possible that one of them's not good. So I'm going to start with these because there's fewer of them. Then I'll probably move to the Raspberry Pi itself, and then hopefully we won't have to move to the socket. And we may do some voltmeter testing just to kind of feel that out. So when I do voltmeter testing, what I do is I just kind of look at where you basically want to make sure that the pin is connected to where it's going. So sometimes this is easy and straightforward, and sometimes it's not. But I don't know, you might do something like this. So see, I don't know, before we do any serious tracing, so I think that's probably accurate. I'm just going to reflow some solder kind of on the suspect areas before we start really doing any circuit tracing, because that it gets nitty gritty, but it's systematic. You could make this happen. So I'm gonna just hit these real quick, just heat them up. Okay, so doing that round, I'm now gonna try to test it again and see if that solved our problem. And if not, we'll move to the next group of pins. Okay, so after that change, they didn't boot up at all. Since I did have to take the Raspberry Pi off and then put it back on, I am now strongly suspecting that it's the pins on the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to run the solder over those now really quick. And so, yeah, it feels like a step in the wrong direction to go from it working to completely not working. But I think it's, you're just looking for little hints as to what's keeping you from progressing. So I'm going to do this, and then we'll go from there. Just going to reflow this solder try to be a little more meticulous than I was the first time. Okay, I've rerun the solder on all of these pins, so now I'm going to try it again. Okay, so it's still not giving a signal. I am still really not wanting to take this screen off, so I think I kind of have, because that's going to be just like a messy step to take the screen off. So, and you risk just damaging the circuit board. You can burn up the PCB. So I'm going to try another couple of things. I want to like either confirm what's wrong with these pins before committing to that step, or yeah, basically, you know, before I actually do it, I just want to have a good justification. So I am going to, I think that's the option I'm going to take. The other thing that I guess could possibly have happened is that the Raspberry Pi itself, you know, it has this SD card with a with the operating system and everything on it. Maybe somehow in turning it off and turning it on, maybe I bumped it, or, you know, in pulling it off and putting it back, caused some damage. So I'm gonna, that's the second thing I'm gonna look at, is whether, you know, I could just boot this as a normal Pi Zero. If I don't find anything on the circuit board, maybe the actual operating system and everything got corrupt or something somehow. So I'm gonna look at those two things next. And I'm going to spare you the you know, the looking up. But what I'm going to basically do is I'm going to use this wire here as a pin, and I'm going to plug it in to these different sockets. And then I'm going to use the voltmeter to see where this goes. So I'm going to look at the schematic, and I'm going to identify this pin, and then I'm going to look at, if I can't see it on the circuit board, then I'm going to find where it should go on the schematic, and then touch that point, and then see if the connection's actually made. That is a non-invasive way to test these pins, and I think it's going to take less time than even just getting all of these off and desoldering, because I don't know, that's just usually a last resort for me. So I'm going to embark on that, and hopefully I'll find either a cold connection, which will at least give justification to needing to take this off and redoing that connection, or I will not find anything and then start to look into the Raspberry Pi. So those are the next steps I'm going to take. Okay, so I've gone through actually all of the pins on the Raspberry Pi Zero, and I believe that they're actually all going to the right place. Just because this is a really good debugging technique, I want to just show you one example. So I am choosing pin 7, which I know goes to the C pad of the navigation pin. And so the way I found that out was I looked at the schematic. So you look at the schematic here, and you identify the Raspberry Pi, and then you identify the pin. And so we can see that pin 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you can see the pinout of the Raspberry Pi from the Raspberry Pi website. So I know that that goes to the navigation switch C. So the navigation switch is here, pad C is here. I've got this part of the voltmeter just set up here to grab onto this pin, or sorry, that wire. And then I'm just checking to see if the connection is made. And I'm looking at the voltmeter here, which right now is 0L, which means it's an open circuit. So if you can't get a true 0 when you touch this, then that's indicative of a poor connection. So I can see here that I get a solid 0 whenever, or 0.3 whenever I'm able to hold it on there successfully. So I just went through and checked all of the connection to the Raspberry Pi through this socket. So I actually feel pretty good about that. I don't think the next step is to remove the screen. I think the next step is probably to see how the health of the Raspberry Pi is on its own. And then I've got another couple ideas if that doesn't get us to a functional unit. So thanks for following along. Okay, so getting back to this guy. So when we last left off, I was going to go check out the Raspberry Pi. And yeah, there was something wrong with it. I think in the process of pulling this off, I was actually pulling on the SD and I actually broke the other SD card. So that was a bummer. But I fortunately had another one and I flashed that. So the other SD card, it doesn't appear to be broken, but when it's plugged into a computer, nothing recognizes it. So that was abnormal. But I was able to easily find on the recurBOY website or GitHub the image and put that on with Balena Etcher. And so then it was booting back up again, but the knobs still weren't working. So I started to investigate that a little more closely. As we'd already confirmed, the Raspberry Pi was well connected to pretty much all of the points on the board. So that was in good shape. The really only other stuff to look at was this IC. And so I started to look into that a little more. And this is directly related to the knobs, so it should have been an earlier thing to look at. So the knobs all connect to this. What I realized was that there was a cold solder joint on the power supply to the IC. And I think that just, it came like that. And that's something I wasn't expecting, but that's all right. So this is numbered, so the way I checked it was this is numbered 1 through 8, and then 9 through 16 on that side, 1 through 8, 9 through 16, so pin 1. So these should short between them if they're appropriately connected. And as you can see with the potentiometer, or sorry, the voltmeter on the resistance mode, you can see it going to 0 resistance. And so I found that I reflowed the solder on those and then booted it back up. Knobs are working. Beautiful device. It's just so pretty, and I'll show some samples of it in a little while. And just made with care and very thoughtful. I'm really looking forward to exploring it more. So I'm very happy it's working. I guess in general, I would say that these getting into that debug mindset when something's not working and just moving really slow and methodically and asking yourself questions is about why something might not work. It was an opportunity to get to know the circuit board a little bit better. I feel like I have a better sense now of what exactly the Raspberry Pi is connected to. And all of the information is available on GitHub, so it's super cool to have an open hardware system like that where you can really look into it. So yeah, overall, a beautiful system. Glad to have it together and working. So real exciting to play with it.